what exactly is self? What are methods? Can you explain in a more simple example of a class? And so it gives me like this hello world about the simplest class you could ever write. So you can really dig in and ask somebody specific questions, and you might not always have an expert around. And so ChatGPT can definitely give you solid information, especially for beginner things. If you're trying to learn a framework that just came out or something very specific, it's going to hallucinate more often, and you're going to have to cross-reference more with the official documentation. But something like Python basics is very good to kind of drill in there.
Hello and welcome to today's Australian Water School webinar covering AI applications for HEC-RAS. I'm your host, Cray Price with the International Water Training Institute. On behalf of the Australian Water School, I am pleased to welcome a live audience of well over 1,000 attendees from all around the planet. So welcome to all of you, and see if we can get started on your adventure into AI in terms of HEC-RAS applications. So let's welcome today's presenters. They've been with us before on a couple of previous webinars. We've got Aaron, Bill, Sean. Maybe just let us know what part of AI for HEC-RAS you're going to be covering today in your presentation time. And just let us know where you're coming to us from today. Aaron, over to you.
I'm Aaron Nichols in Phoenix, Arizona. I'm with Atwell. I'm a senior project engineer here. Today, I'm going to be covering, I'm going to go first. I'm going to cover 3 examples of using just ChatGPT. I think they're going to be beginner friendly. If you haven't used AI to assist you in your HEC-RAS workflows, I think this would be a good place to get started. So I'm going to be walking through those examples, and Sean and Bill will take it from there.
Yes, Bill Katzmeyer with CH Fenstermaker and Associates. Today I'm going to be covering some of the tools that I published on my HEC-Commander repository. They're all applicable to HEC-RAS workflows, and personally, like a lot of my time, I'll be spending between now and these webinars coming up with specific examples that use those GPTs and those tools. And so it's going to be a good example of what you can build and the type of things that we're going to try to help people build using the premium webinar content. So that's going to be our at least my content for the day. So I'll pass that over to Sean.
Yeah, so I'm Sean Misak, also with Fenstermaker, and today I'll be showing a quick example of like extracting results data from a HEC-RAS HDF, and for ChatGPT, like how to have it help you debug, run, and modify and understand some of the Python code there.
Perfect. Well, let's have a look at the poll results. It is pretty standard that most of our attendees for these webinars come from commercial and consulting, but let's have a look then at question number 2. We are pretty well spread between 0 experience, beginning experience, intermediate, and advanced. So it's a little bit of everything, but very few experts. So we hope if we ran a poll like this a year from now, we'd have a few more experts. And one of the things we've mentioned on some previous webinars is that in some fields, you might be, 5, 10, 20 years behind the experts if you're just starting out. In this field, you're only a couple of years behind if you're just getting into it because this is all brand new and it's advancing so quickly. So never fret if you are, wanting to be an expert but haven't got the tools for it yet. That's what we're hoping to offer you today. Okay, well, what we'll do here is I'm going to just quickly present a few additional resources, and then we'll talk a little bit about HEC-RAS specifically and what's coming in HEC-RAS. Overall, though, we've got this interface between AI and HEC-RAS today that we're going to be talking about, at this little nexus here. And so we wanted to make sure that you've got content in both for those who are beginners in either one of those concepts, that we can get you up to speed and comfortable undertaking some of the exercises that are coming. So if you go to hydroschool.org/AI, you'll see links to today's webinar. This will be shown as a recording in the next couple of days. Right now, it's still the registration link, but you have another registration link coming up in August. And this one is a deeper dive, a couple of hours, not just your 1-hour free webinar, but this is a deeper dive, nominal cost on this one. But the same team that you see with you today will be walking you through it, where rather than just watching somebody else do some of these things, you'll be able to do it yourself. Then that we've got this upcoming course where we're going to talk about large language models, including something very exciting that I've just seen demoed yesterday. Blake Markson over at WMS has got a GPT for AR&R. So the Australians in the audience, it looks like there's quite a few from the attendee list on the map, might be very interested to see the thousands of pages of Australian rainfall and runoff documentation put into real, like, English language dialogue back and forth to you, where you can ask it questions and see that come back. So we will have that for you as well in this October course. So that's a lengthier course, 3 2-hour sessions. So we've got 6 hours total with you there. And then if you wanted to see the same panelists today walk through a lot of other examples, we got a 90-minute session here on the Full Momentum vodcast, where we got on with Chris Goodell and Ben Carey to discuss some of the things that you're seeing today and talk about where this is heading. And you'll get to see the classic Running Man icon, get to see them do their dance here, and in the Brunner-Runner, aptly named for one of the HEC-RAS developers. And if you are brand new to AI at all, there are some, going back to the beginning, we got legendary open source expert, Dr. Qisheng Wu, who came with us earlier this year to talk about a couple of specific applications that you can use. Now, these are not specific to HEC-RAS, but can be certainly very useful for HEC-RAS users on segmenting tools and then using the GPT functions for that. If you want an overall intro into the concepts, sometimes AI, machine learning, large language models, what's the difference? A very basic 10-minute intro for the layperson provided by Dr. Kobri at Minani's presentation during this webinar here, number 159. Australian Water School webinars are numbered, so if you go to that one, you should be able to get a basic intro there. Some other previous webinars that we've had covering AI, and then some things that we've got here that are just for fun, along with some relevant papers and some things like that. Now, if you are brand new to HEC-RAS, we do have some training opportunities that are online at the moment, where if you go to the Australian Water School's HEC-RAS training series, which is listed here up under your on-demand training right there, there's a training series. You can see how we've got some specialty courses and structures, sediment transport and dam breach. But if you're just looking at the basics, we've got a introductory 6-hour course and then a longer 8-session course, so 16 hours for you with this master class. If you are anywhere in the U.S., in the Atlanta or East Coast area, look, I think next month, Chris Goodell and Ben Carey are running a live course. So anybody who's lucky enough to be there and attend some things live, you may want to have a look at those. So what I wanted to do is, before we kick off, a lot of interest. There's been a lot of people asking about what's coming in HEC-RAS. Now, I had some things we were going to share, but I've just heard from the Corps of Engineers that they've got some content that they're going to publish here very shortly about what's up and coming. It was presented at the ASFPM conference in the U.S., which I understand, Bill, I think you attended that conference. What have you heard from the rumor mill in terms of what's coming up in the next releases of HEC-RAS?
Well, unfortunately, I was at ASFPM, but I guess that one talk wasn't advertised well enough because I missed it. But I did hear some of the rumors. I'll share just the verbal rumors that I heard, that we're going to get pipe systems that are going to be supported. We're going to hopefully get a GPU solver. And I heard 2025, but again, these are all rumors. We don't want to speak out of pocket, and we want to let the Corps speak for themselves. They share that in a private venue, but I do hear there's a lot of really exciting, fun things. And one of the things that piqued my interest is they mentioned a RAS API. So if any of y'all are listening, I'd love to see those details whenever you do announce it.
Yes, sounds good. I mean, the things they said they're comfortable sharing on that is that, yes, it will have pipe features, which will provide a more robust interface with the rewrite of HEC-RAS, which will be this 2025 application. But 6.6, which should be out in the next few months, will have some more powerful capabilities. They're mentioning at least 6 tools and cool features that are coming up, including porous elements. So think about that for large woody debris or for buildings, and new floodplain deposition algorithms for those who are looking into sediment transport. It looks like I'm just going through an email that came from the Corps here on some of the things that they wanted to share about this, which is, in RAS 2025, the mesh tools are wildly improved, and you'll be able to see those results in real time. And it looks like the wait times for maps to refresh is going to be well improved, and it'll be this portable install package that can then always get updates and bug fixes pushed out. So that's the reason behind a brand new, I think it's an alpha version that may be available in the next few months. So there are a few other people on board in the background. If you have any questions about what's coming up, who were at that presentation, who got to see it live, and they can answer your questions in the background if you have anything specific in the chat line that you wanted to ask about that. But yeah, we want to get into our AI content as quick as we can here. So we're going to kick off now with Aaron, and let's have you share your screen, and then we'll turn the time over to you while the other presenters are in the background answering your questions. Then we'll come back on for a live panel discussion. Over to you, Aaron. I can see your screen.
Thank you. So I thought I'd just hop back and just kind of briefly explain, what are we talking about with integrating AI with HEC-RAS? What do we mean by AI? In this specifically, we're talking about large language models. So not the traditional deep learning models. We're not going to be segmenting anything as you've seen other AIs do. AI in general is all about prediction. This AI is no different. What it's predicting, though, is it's predicting the next most likely word that comes based on all the previous words generated before it. So how do we apply that to HEC-RAS? How do we apply that to code? A part of the training data is a ton of code. It's seen a ton of data on the internet that it's trained on, and a lot of that is code. So that text that it predicts can be Python code. So based on your input prompt asking for a certain thing, you can have the AI transform your natural language prompt into functional Python code. And for us in using HEC-RAS and stuff like that, we're gonna gear that Python code to build ourselves little scripts and tools. You can get really complex with it. If you're a beginner programmer or no programming at all, you can still get started with this stuff. And I think just the barrier to entry on some of this stuff is just to know what types of questions you can ask of these AI. You can ask it to write you a poem, stuff like that, but you can ask it to help you automate some stuff. So I've got 3 kind of quick examples prepared, starting simpler and then moving up a little bit, but I think still in the realm of what a beginner or someone with no code experience may be able to do. So we're going to be utilizing ChatGPT for all of this stuff, all 3. And utilizing its ability to upload files. So you can upload files, and I'll show you which kinds you can upload, which may be not intuitive to you. And then we're going to use its code interpreter, which allows it to not only write code, but execute code. These are pre-run examples. I won't have time to upload the data and run it through in full, but I will walk through examples that I have pre-run. So it's using the code, and ChatGPT is using Python to extract data from our files and manipulate data. So the AI is really just in writing the code. The code is not AI. The AI is writing the code. So just to clarify that. But something that you can do, and something that I actually do in practice, is terrain modifications. When I'm looking at designing channels, which I do a lot, we look at different alternatives, and we need to come up with costs associated with those alternatives. So a big portion of that cost is excavation and fill. What's the quantities on that? And not too long ago, I had ChatGPT write me a script to do that based on my terrains. So I can show you how that was done. But basically what we're doing is we're uploading a proposed DEM and an existing DEM, providing some instructions to ChatGPT as what we want. And then as just a part of verifying the process, and these are just recommendations, but you should always verify the results that it gives you against something that's known. And then I would recommend, what it's going to give you code. You should save that code and reuse it rather than going to ChatGPT each time to do these things. So I'm going to head over to ChatGPT and kind of walk through what was done here. So I've uploaded an existing terrain and proposed terrain, DEM. That's just dragging and dropping those into the chat window. That's all that needs to be done. And then providing a text prompt of what I want. And there's no fancy prompt engineering here. It's just kind of being clear and specific, which I think is 90% of prompt engineering. So I'm telling it, calculate the cut and the fill, net volumes. Volume should be calculated based on the proposed minus DEM. So wherever cut, that channel's cutting, and that would be a negative value. And anywhere there's fill, that would be a positive. And just telling it that the units are in feet. So basically from that one single text prompt, it's going to write you code. And then not only write you the code, but execute the code and tell you the results from it. So we get cut and fill based off of that and the net volume. Later on in the chat, I'm just verifying the results based on a known raster where I've done that before. But as simple as that, it may not be intuitive to you that you can upload a DEM to ChatGPT and ask it to do geospatial stuff, but you can, and you can with a single text prompt get something useful out of it. But what else can you do with it? HEC-RAS uses HDF5 files. Can you upload those to ChatGPT and do something with them? You actually can. So in this example, I was like, okay, can we create some sort of like custom export of I have these culvert shape files that I'm wanting with certain attributes in them from a HEC-RAS model. So when you export say culvert barrel shape files from RAS-Mapper, you don't get all the attributes that you might want in the shapefile that you exported. So to remedy that, I uploaded the HDF5 file to ChatGPT and had it navigate that file, look for the data that I wanted, and then export that as a shapefile that I can download entirely within ChatGPT. So kind of the process here that I'd recommend, and I'm going to head over to the chat where I've done this, is to get somewhat familiar with the file structure. So here is an online viewer of HDF5 files. I've uploaded that. And then just kind of familiarize yourself. This is kind of like a typical tree structure that you see from the HDF5 file. Where's the culvert data at? It's all down here, and we can look at their attributes of that. But going over to ChatGPT now, I can show you what was done here. So I've, again, just drag and drop the HDF5 file, the geometry HDF file. And what I've done is I've taken just a screenshot of that file structure we were just looking at and provided that. So ChatGPT and most of the other language models have some sort of vision capability now, so they can see what's in a screenshot like this. So again, nothing fancy here. I've uploaded geometry file, extract culvert group and barrel data attributes, and then use the attached image to understand kind of the file structure before parsing the data. So it's going to, based on that image, start navigating the file. It's understanding the file paths, where that data is. And then we can kind of get some intermediate views here. So it's extracted the culvert group data from that file, culvert barrel data. So we're kind of building the attribute table for this culvert shapefile that we're looking for. So I'm just telling it to merge those because I want a single data set with all the data associated to each culvert barrel. And then I was just running into some issues. So I was being a little specific here. Consider any suffixes added during the merges. It was getting a little confused on how it was renaming some of the columns as it was doing that. So I just clarified in that prompt there. Again, generated the code, it's running the code, and then it's merged that into, so we've built the attribute table of the shapefile that we're looking for. And we have the X and Y coordinates. So I'm just going to tell it to, create a line string shapefile. Attribute table fields for a shapefile can't be any longer than 10 characters. What coordinate system I want it in. And then just to zip everything up in a zip file, because there's multiple files associated with the shapefile. And then you get a download link, so you can download the zip file, which I've done, and I'll go over to QGIS and we can kind of see what it's given me. It's given me this Colbert barrel shapefile with, let me open the attribute table, with all of the attributes associated with it. So, it's a circular pipe. What's the rise and span of the pipe, the length, Manning's end value used. So kind of the use case I'm thinking here is like you want certain attributes for your exhibits and stuff that you can use for automatic labeling, or you want to send, you want to update some GIS database that you have of culverts, say if you're a public entity. You can do that. Somebody's developed this model for you. You want to be able to utilize that data. So you can extract data. Just take this as you can upload an HDF file and then extract data from it entirely within ChatGPT and get it into some format that you might want it in. And then the third example here, I'm going to kind of quickly go through it because I don't want to eat too much time. But this one, I've created the green and amped infiltration layer entirely within ChatGPT again. But typically I'll have a land use and soil shape file with all the attributes that I need to be able to calculate the green and amped infiltration parameters. This requires more specific instructions to get you the output to instruct it on how to do those calculations. You want to be specific there to make sure things are calculated right. So this is a more intensive prompt, but it's really just if you understand the hydrology, you understand how the calculation is performed. It's really just providing the natural language for it to then turn that into code. And I've kind of just broken it up here in a markdown format just to make it a little easier to read. But I provided a link to these chats so you can go through them in more detail on the PowerPoints as well. But again, it's, writing the code to do the merging of those two data sets. It's taking a guess at what fields would correspond to what in the attribute table because I didn't tell it that. So it actually correctly guessed each of the fields that was necessary to perform those calcs. And then this is kind of the advantage of code interpreter here. It's running into errors because it's not going to write the code perfectly every single time, but it runs into an error. The language model sees that error, is able to update the code to try to address it. And it's able to do that several times over at a minimum. So we see 1, 2, 3, maybe 3 errors before it finally gets it right. And then provides me the unioned shapefile of those land uses and soils and provided me a download link to those. So kind of just looking at this in GIS. I had these soils land use shapefile. I just clipped it to make it small for an easy example, but land use, or soils, land use, and then the union of those, and then we open the attribute table, and it's got the calculated fields that are necessary when you're doing the import to shapefile. Import in RAS mapper of the infiltration layer shapefile. And then you would just map those fields to the corresponding field in RAS mapper. But I hope those, if they're not directly applicable to you, I hope that there's enough there that it gives you some ideas to, these are the types of questions you can ask of, say, ChatGPT, which may not be intuitive to you when you're first getting started.
Wow. And that's, I think, frankly, there are a lot of people online here. I've seen a lot of your presentations before, and even having seen those, I'm still blown away by what it can do. And you see the astonishing emoji coming across from all the attendees and the applause there. Wow. I think rightly so. There's a lot of people impressed by what it can do. And I frankly did not know that you could prompt it for some of these things. So that is awesome. Aaron will go into the background now and answer your questions about his content while Bill comes on now and shares. Bill, if you can share your screen, and let's have a look at the HEC-Commander. Over to you, Bill.
Well, let me get myself unmuted here, and I can get started. Let's see. Okay, so, focusing less on the examples here today, I've got a whole repository full of things that are applicable to HEC-RAS modeling that I've built with AI. So I'm going to cover, a couple things broadly, but then one thing specifically. So in our HEC-Commander repository, which is a open source collection of tools that I've been building ever since ChatGPT came out, I've really tried to leverage AI at every stage of the process, from developing the code, having it help me write the blogs, having it help me write ChatGPT examples. I've built some almost 30 plus GPTs that I've published, and a lot of other miscellaneous tools that are related to our LWI Region 4 efforts at FinsterMaker that we've open sourced. So just to real quickly move through, I've made quite a few updates. I know some people on the stream may be familiar with what I've been posting, some people not. The best place to find it, of course, is my LinkedIn. But in the last, few weeks since ASFPM, I've gotten inspired to try to fill out with more GPTs that are really specifically trained with a knowledge base and instructions for specific libraries that we use all the time, not only for RAS inputs and outputs, but for the files that go in and out as well. So, messing with HDF files, we've got a specific HDF file assistant that is better trained with the documentation from H5Py. You can use the general model, but this is just if you get stuck on something or you really want to use one that's an expert in that particular thing to try to get better results, we've got a GPT out there for that. There's also another for DSS files, which I think everybody's wrestled with those at some point or another, to be able to export and import data into those DSS file formats is a big time saver, big unlock. And there's also available tools out there for getting hydroclimate data, NHD plus data, USGS terrain data, and LCD data that you can all grab via API. So if you're doing one project, maybe it doesn't matter, but if you've got a standard set of data that you like to use across, all of the things that you do in your practice area, which I think is pretty common, you've got your stack of data that you typically use for your local modeling tasks that you can then start assembling scripts with GPT that can allow you to automate the compilation of that data just for the model domain that you're looking for, do terrain processing, and then we've even I covered this in our other webinar, but we've made a HEC-RAS forum assistant that has all of the Kleinschmidt forum posts as well as the RAS solution transcripts. I couldn't include all the AWS transcripts. That would have need to be a separate GPT. I kind of hit the token limit, but I do plan to do one of those eventually as well. That'll help people be able to interact and ask questions that they think has been covered in previous AWS webinars, but they're just not sure where, they're not sure what. Hopefully be able to give you some passage of the transcript as well as the actual episode and a link to be able to send you there, which is what our forum assistant does. It actually gives you a link back to the forum. So specifically for HEC-RAS, we've got RAS-Commander, which is a HEC-RAS calibration and validation tool that also helps with parallelization of HEC-RAS for multiple runs. And a lot of people aren't going to be necessarily interested in that unless you've got lots of big 2D models to run. But again, I think all of these tools are useful most for people who need they have bespoke needs that don't fall into the bell curve of what RAS is really trying to cover. There's so many more needs out there than there is developer time to cater to every need. And so there's always going to be some desire to have additional functionality. I think that's what AI really unlocks. We also have DSS-Commander, helps visualize the DSS results. That upper right-hand corner, that's DSS-Commander's results, along with a calibration set that I ran with RAS-Commander. I've also got some tools that we've been building for doing data variance analysis on Atlas 14 data, getting soil stats getting soil stats from soils layers directly, which I think may actually be obsolete with 6.5, but I haven't used that particular feature yet. And then the one that we're going to cover now very quickly, which is the terrain modification profiler. And so I guess just to very quickly just step back and, we also always get this question of why automate? Are you going to save time? Is it worth it? And I think one of the most powerful things about having AI-assisted coding is that a bar of the time it takes to complete a specific task, to the point where more often that answer can now be yes. Yes, it's worth it for me to go and do something that's going to be repeated, say 10 times, because now I know I'll never have to do it 10 times or more ever again. So this is a good example. If you've ever dealt with a 2D model or even a 1D model that had a LiDAR without any detailed channel data and with tree cover, you've seen what we see here, which is a profile that's very, very noisy, has tree cover in some places, multiple feet of profile interruption there that is not real and can generate some real problems in your model if your cross-sections happen to land on it or if your 2D cell faces end up landing on any of those. So we had a need to go through and create pilot channels for our terrain mods on multiple large-scale models that had, miles and miles and miles of center line to generate these profiles manually. But we did have center lines already. And so we generated a script that would simply have a couple of inputs. The only input is your center lines of the channels that you've chosen and segregate over to be, to represent the ones that have your noise issues that you want to convert into a terrain modification. You paste those into your terrain modifications layer and you export as GeoJSON. You put that as an input into this little script that we made, as well as pointing it towards your terrain TIFF, and it goes through and gives you a CSV file that lets you copy paste a pilot channel bottom profile into every one of your terrain mods. There's even, I think potentially we could take this and even automate putting that data back into the terrain HDF file. But we didn't go that far because, again, the question is, when is it worth it? You try to automate the biggest pain point and then move on. And so I don't have a full demo of this because I think everybody has done a terrain mod in RAS. I don't think I'd really need to point out how awkward that little input box is. I don't know if that would make good podcasting. So I'm going to just leave it at, I think everybody's used this recognizes that's a difficult little workflow to do repeatedly for a lot of channels. And to be able to just point a GeoJSON, you create a little GeoJSON, it's just an output, just a shapefile output in 6.5, and then stick it through a script that then lets you copy paste in profiles that get you 90% there is a big time unlock if you have lots of them to do. And so again, everybody's pain points are going to be a little different. It really depends on your actual project that you're working on. But, I think this is a really good bread and butter example of something that I came up with in an afternoon. It's well within what, we want to try to make sure that everybody that walks out of these webinars can do as a level of complexity to be able to do useful things or directly around HEC-RAS, to do things that it can't necessarily do in its default state. And so another one of the things we try to focus on is the AI coding in the local notebooks. I just wanted to point out the best in class is Cursor. It's probably the most powerful way to bring your code local and continue with your small iterations and improving your scripts. Once you've gotten the main piece of it done in ChatGPT's code interpreter, and with the recent GPT-4o Mini and Llama 3.1 models, there's actually some low cost options, and so we're just really excited to cover that in some of the upcoming classes. This is what I use every day. I do use the GPTs, but I also use AI coding way more once I've got things structured out from a high level in those GPTs. A lot of those GPTs I use when I need something that's specific in the general model fails me. So with that, I turn it over. Sean has some other examples, and he's going to get more into the actual showing off examples. So with that, I think I'll let him share over me and continue this conversation.
Sounds good. Yeah, we'd look forward to hearing from Sean. And thanks for all the questions coming in the background. Keep those coming. We'll have a live panel discussion here momentarily. One of the things that some people are asking is, are we going to get to do this ourselves? And yes, absolutely. Come along to that next course or the premium webinar in August, and you will actually follow along with some of these examples and not just watch them passively. It's going to be active participation, and you'll be running some of these things yourselves. So I can see your screen fine there, Sean. So over to you.
Yeah, so I mean, in the same vein as HEC-Commander, we also have this Brunner-Runner tool, which actually all of us came on the RAS Solution vodcast, and if you go to that QR code down here, there's a demo on that. I'll go ahead and share my screen. Yeah, so I wanted to sort of show like a bare bones canonical example of like extracting results data from a HEC-RAS HDF file. And so in my world, something that we use that a lot for is calibration of a large watershed model. For your use cases, it may look different, but the general workflow would be similar there. And so, I wrote this script on like a simple example of doing that for model calibration. But for the sake of this example, we're going to imagine that I'm a novice Python programmer, and I was just given this script. And so we're gonna, take a look at this. So it's not too long, 100 lines here. And what it does is, given an input shapefile of gauge station locations and a CSV with the different gauges and the time series for your historical event, it will produce this interactive plot as a HTML file. And so we can come in here and, see all the different gauges and go ahead and, plot those observed versus simulated and, zoom down to where we need. And so going into GPT for this example, I told it, so I was given this script from a colleague, which supposedly takes this CSV and shapefile to produce the plot in the screenshot. I've tried running this script in Python, but it doesn't produce anything. How can I use this? And so, if it doesn't work as advertised, and maybe whoever wrote the script is busy, and you just need somebody to talk you through it. So I actually uploaded the Python script here, and then the gauge shapefile. Aaron, I'm not sure about HDF files in ChatGPT, but this one seems to have uploaded. It just can't display a visualization for that. So it may be, if it's within a certain file size threshold, I believe 0.5 gig is the limit currently. And then a screenshot of how the plots look. And so it actually, goes in and kind of spells out what's in the script there. And then it rewrites the entire script. It's a little wordy, like it tries to rewrite things. And then this is the useful information here, where it's actually giving you how you use this. You don't just run it. For this case, you have to instantiate an instance of that class. And then this is very helpful. The libraries you'll have to install to get this thing to run. And so, ask for an update on it, and it gives it to me. It actually ran the script that it gave me, and somehow in refactoring, it hit an error. So just asked it, I actually don't want to change the original script. Can you just show me how to import the code into a separate Jupyter notebook and then run it from there? And so it does. It gives me, this bang command here to install, and then this magic command to import everything. And then this is the relevant code here. That's all you would need to run that. And then, so I did run that in Jupyter Notebook, and it gave me, this nice looking plot here. And so, some of the pushback that any new tools get is like for social media, people think that it's shortening our attention spans, or ChatGPT is just for helping kids cheat in school. But I mean, really, any new technology is a double-edged sword, and it's how you use it that matters, right? If you're using it to to make yourself smarter in the end. And so, something that I've heard Bill really hammer home is that you can actually have it explain the code to you and walk you through every little part. And so, I tell it, well, that's perfect. So I'm trying to learn Python. So far, I've only got through chapter 3 of Automate the Boring Stuff. Some of the stuff in the script is beyond my knowledge, especially working with the different file types. And I'm not sure what a class is. Could you help me walk through what the script is doing? And so, yeah, it gives some helpful information, explains what a class is, what methods are, kind of walks through line by line, like, what each of these libraries are. This is the definition of the class, and, explains this is a special method, reading the HDF file, and using pandas and visualization, everything. It walks through it, and then it says, feel free to ask more specific questions from any part of the script or the concepts involved. And so, I ask it, what exactly is self? What are methods? Can you explain in a more simple example of a class? And so it gives me like this hello world example of, about the simplest class you could ever write. And so you can really like dig in, and especially for me, when I'm learning something new, it helps to be able to ask somebody specific questions, and you might not always have an expert around. And so, ChatGPT can definitely give you solid information, especially for beginner things. If you're trying to learn like a framework that just came out or something very specific, it's going to hallucinate more often, and you're going to have to cross-reference more with the official documentation. But something like Python basics is, very good to kind of drill in there. And so, ask it about data frames, and it kind of gives you some examples here, like what a data frame looks like, basics about pandas. And so then, I tell it, data frames seem very complicated. Can you recommend any books or further resources to really dive in and get an intuitive understanding of how to use these? And so, it gives this nicely formatted list here. For me, this book is king for pandas, written by the author himself. I'm not as familiar with these other ones, and it gives resources for courses and, Kaggle online resources. And then ask it to make that into a HTML file to save for later. And it does that. But I actually, have my own links that I always give people when they ask for Python resources. So I'm going to put that up down here. And then I guess real quick, sort of a second example given the same script. So again, I'm in the ChatGPT interface. Again, upload the full script, the Python file, and a screenshot of it. As Aaron showed, you can just paste screenshots and upload files here. And so for this one, I say I was given the script from a webinar, and I need to edit the final plots to have a white background and be more report friendly. First of all, so kind of give it, some instructions for that, and it does. It's able to update the script so that It's like white background, a little more report friendly, something that could easily be copied into a Word document. And so then I actually ask it, could you make this blue line here darker and make it dashed? And it's able to do that. And then I ask it, can you make the label bold, and can you put gray grid lines in the background? And so it makes that update. And then I kind of up the ante and ask it, could you actually calculate the peak and time of peak for each of these observed and simulated graphs, and put a little X there on the plot? And so, in plain English, it understands what you mean and updates the code to include that. And so, even as an experienced Python programmer, there's just too many frameworks out there. And especially if you're not too into the syntax of a certain framework, that so this is using Plotly, which is very well documented, and so it has enough training data to give you good results for this. And so rather than looking up documentation, a lot of times I'll just ask it, like, add a little call out here, and it'll put it there, and you ask it, could you move it a little bit over this way? And it actually understands, it has, you can paste a screenshot, and it's able to understand pretty intuitively, like, what you mean, right? By a little X, I didn't have to specify that it needs to be 9 pixels by 9 pixels. It just kind of intuitively knows, what you mean from a plain English description. So yeah, that's my example there.
That is amazing. I think we have set a new record for the number of emojis coming across. I've never seen so many of the open mouth, gaping, open wide mouths saying, "Wow, I did not know that we were here yet." I mean, it's just phenomenal. It's I don't know if this comes across on the YouTube recording, but there's nothing but applauses and holy cow. I don't know what that emoji is called, but thanks for that. All three of our presenters, if you can turn your cameras back on, those who are able, we will now have a bit of a panel discussion, and let's just go back through in order. I don't want to guess at which ones you think are most relevant, but we'll probably start with Aaron. Aaron, if you want to just go through the things that you've seen come in on the background and just maybe highlight, we got about 10 minutes left, just highlight the things that we can in this form, and then just let us know which parts you're going to address in our 2-hour in-depth webinar coming up in August. So over to you, Aaron.
Yeah, so a question came up a couple times. Are they training their models using this data? If you're using the free account or you have a personal account, yeah, they're going to be training their models on that. You can sign up for a Teams account, which is a little more expensive. I think it's 25 versus 20, or an enterprise account. I have an enterprise account through Atwell, which I use for anything where we have confidential data. But for where I'm doing, upload a sample data set just to write a script or something like that, I'll just use my personal account for that. But anything proprietary or anything like that, you should probably be using a Teams account, and pester your employer to start thinking about getting you that. I can tell you I'm using it. Atwell has invested in that. Other questions? So yeah, we've covered HEC-RAS, but upload a text file for whatever model you're using, and it can handle that. If you can open it in a text editor, ChatGPT can start manipulating and extracting data from that. I'm more of a Flow2D user than a HEC-RAS user currently, so I use it a ton for that, and it works well for that as well. So, or if you're doing more hydrology than hydraulics, there's a question about time of concentration calculations. You can have it help you there as well. Upload a shape file of your flow paths and a DEM, and it will pop the elevations off and tell you the slopes and all that. So treat it like you can do a lot that you would do in GIS kind of in ChatGPT because it has Python libraries. that allow you to do that. GeoPandas you'll see, or Raster.io you'll see a lot. And that's how it's able to manipulate this GIS data. So you're not going to be able to do everything. You're not going to be able to upload huge data sets, or, there may be some complex workflow that confuses it, but start there. That's kind of where I started, was uploading these, just seeing if I can get it to do some of this GIS stuff for me.
Yeah. Oh, perfect. Bill, same question over to you. If you want to just have a look at what's been addressed in the background, because those on YouTube will not see the chat necessarily live. If you can just, let us just pick something out that you think is most relevant for the time we've got remaining.
Yeah, I guess I will say that trying to start small within the ChatGPT code interpreter is the best way, and especially if you can just run a short simulation. A lot of times you can mock up what you're trying to do with a short file, a small file, and then just save that code locally and use it for large data sets, or then say, hey, I want to do this 20 times for everything in the folder, et cetera, et cetera.
Perfect on there. And then the same question over to, do you have any others you wanted to hit before we go?
I think there was a question about whether or not this is going to, trying to get some of that pipe info out from HEC-RAS was going to be in a future update. And I really, I just want to say that that's the point of this, is to be able to work around some of those limitations and not have to wait on them. So I don't know, and I'd probably, once I have the tool in my hand, not care.
No, all good. Sean, same question.
So somebody asked about if we can use the same sort of workflows for R and HEC-RAS. So most of these things should be available in R, like especially reading HDF data and working within how you like. I don't believe that they have bindings for DSS in R. But a lot of the same stuff you should be able to accomplish. And then somebody asked, it looks like they asked if the repository for that script is available. So I'm going to leave you with a cliffhanger and say, if you sign up for the premium course, we'll share that one with you.
Right, come back in August. And I think in general, what we're all seeing here, I think most of the people on the call, whether you've got experience in AI or HEC-RAS, either one or neither, most of us are in a field where we look at projections and we look at trends, whether it's climate change or, we look at these statistics. When you look at what we could do 5 years ago, then 4, then 3, then 2, then 1 year ago, where we are today compared to, this is going month to month. When we've got on with this same group, a lot of times what will happen is they'll say, hey, there's something new that it couldn't do, last time we chatted, which was just a month or two ago. If you take that trajectory and plot it onward, where are we going to be 5 years, 10 years, 20 years from now? Don't just watch this and leave it and just think, okay, this is for somebody else. Try it yourself. Get in and ask it these questions. Get into the interface. You'll be amazed at what it can do. Even if you tried it a year ago, there's new things that it can do today that it couldn't do a year ago. And that's just, it's just the nature of where things are heading. It's accelerating tremendously, and it's going to be a large part of everybody's workflow in the next 5, 10, 20 years. You may as well try to get ahead of that game. So do come join us for this webinar in August, and then for this live course. Thanks so much to Blake in the background. Blake's going to be joining us then in our October course, and maybe even give a little demo in our August course as well about some additional applications. And there are some links that we'll post here where it doesn't matter which software you're working on. This is a phenomenal resource that, I've probably got over 1,000 unanswered emails about HEC-RAS that I intended to go dig out the answers for. I know they're there somewhere. I just have not gotten around to doing it. AI can go in and we can get it to scrape these databases. And what Blake has done in the background has done this for HMS, for HEC-RAS, for the things we had on BridgeScour with the hydraulic toolbox for HY8. We've talked specifically today about HEC-RAS. Think about all the other software you use, and sky's the limit, for what we could do here. So what we're going to do now is just have final closing remarks. May go a couple minutes past the hour. If you need to run, you will get the YouTube recording link emailed to you. We hope we didn't have too much of this go straight over your head. If some of it did, go back to some of those resources we covered at the beginning, and where we cover an introduction to some of these terms that might be unfamiliar for the beginners. So let's go back through in order. Final closing remarks to bring it home for us. Then Aaron, then Bill, then Sean. So over to you, Aaron, first.
Yeah. So in my opinion, I think this is something that we're all going to need to learn. These models have gotten quite a bit better. And I think we're probably pretty close, maybe before the end of the year, before we see another another jump in ability. I could be wrong about that, but maybe it's, the following year. But in general, I think it's worth assigning some probability to, these things are going to get quite a bit better. And we're probably going to need to start working, along with our AI assistants. I think, it's a lot of fun for me to do this stuff and keep up with it. So, we'll keep sharing what we learn. You can follow along, and we try to share examples and stuff like that of what you can do. But just applying it to your own workflows and figuring that out.
Perfect. Bill, over to you.
I got to give a shout out to Blake there in the chat. I'm looking at all those GPTs, and I really love the energy. I've wanted to do a lot of those, particularly specifically, and I have not had the time to do it. So I'm going to give you a shout out on LinkedIn when this is done. That's exactly the kind of energy that I'd like to see from some of the participants, just to be able to come back and show us what you built. I think anybody that might be sitting here in the audience and thinking, maybe some of those examples you felt like were mid. Maybe some of those were, good, but you've done something cooler. Flex out, do it. I think that there's so much opportunity here. There's so much value that none of us have time to pick it all up. It's like walking through a field of gold bars, and so I just sort of, I just want to say to everybody that's listening, I'd love for anybody in this audience to come within the next year and be on this panel and show off something really, really cool that they've done with AI. And that's, and if you'd like to reach out to me on LinkedIn or wherever to try to help make that happen, I'd really like to see more people succeed with this. We've done great things, but, I want to see more people doing what me and Aaron and Sean and Blake, I see, are doing. And so that's what I want to close with.
Yeah, perfect. And we will feature some of Blake's content on some of these upcoming sessions. Sean, bring it home for us if you can.
Yeah, similar to Aaron, I'm just amazed by the pace at which this stuff develops. Just 2 days ago, Bill and I were texting back and forth, Microsoft released some experimental new library that basically uses LLMs within each training epoch of an agent. And so basically what that means, it seems like machine learning models that write themselves, code that writes itself. Everything we're demoing is an emergent capability, right? Things that we're poking around with it and finding out that it can do. But, this time next year, it could be entirely different. So,
yeah. Watch this space. So apologies for the potential, if it's seen as a bait and switch for those who were expecting to see a little more about what's coming in the new versions of HEC-RAS. We did want to feature some of that, but we're been asked to just hold our horses a little bit and wait for the official releases here, not for the official release of the software, but for the official previews of what's coming, which will be published by the Corps very shortly. So we will pass that along to you. Stay tuned and subscribe to the Australian Water School's newsletter, and you will be able to get those updates when they come to you. We will pass them along as soon as we have them. It's very exciting to see what's coming for those who are in HEC-RAS. This is it's amazing to see a whole new rebuild. It's a whole new interface. It's got a whole new look to it. You might not even recognize it. Easier on the eyes. It's all the black screens and everything else. It's going to look much more like some of the screens that you've seen here today. So thanks for everybody for attending. Do fill out the survey at the end to let us know what you want to see more of. We want to bring you the most relevant content through the Australian Water School, not just for Australia, but worldwide. And we want to make sure that we're bringing you things that are going to improve your ability to do what you do. So we need to hear from you in order to bring you that most relevant content. So thanks so much to our presenters who have come on board to share this information with you. Thanks to all the attendees for joining us today. We will see you next time with the Australian Water School.